There's a true story about a young and successful executive who was traveling through a neighborhood driving a bit too fast in his new Jaguar. Suddenly, a brick smashed into the Jag's side door. So the young executive slammed on the brakes and backed up to the spot where the brick had been thrown. He jumped out of the car, he grabbed the nearest kid, pushed him up against the parked car, shouting, "What's wrong with you? What's this all about? Who are you? Don't you know that that rock caused all kinds of damage to my car?" Well, the young kid was extremely apologetic. "Please, mister, please, I'm sorry, but I didn't know what else to do. I threw the brick because nobody else would stop. It's my brother," he said. "He rolled off the curb, fell out of his wheelchair. I can't lift him up." The boy was crying. The young executive was stunned. And the boy said to him, "Would you please help me get him back into his wheelchair? He's hurt. He's too heavy for me." The young executive was moved beyond words, tried to swallow that rapidly swelling lump in his throat. He hurriedly picked up the handicapped boy, put him back into the wheelchair, took out a handkerchief, dabbed at the fresh scrapes and cuts, and a quick look told him that everything was going to be okay. And the boy said thank you and went on his way. The young executive was too shook up for words. He simply watched the boy push the wheelchair-bound brother down the sidewalk toward their home. It was kind of a long walk, slow walk back to his car. And the interesting thing is he told us that he never repaired the dent in that door. He said he kept the dent there to remind him of this message. And the message is, don't go through life so fast that someone has to throw a brick at you to get your attention. That first reading from Deuteronomy, we hear the Jewish confession of faith that the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. In Hebrew, this is called Shema. The command that's given in Deuteronomy is reiterated in the Gospel of Mark, to love the Lord alone, and then to love our neighbor as ourselves. Now, psychologists tell us that there are two kinds of people. The unhealthy ones who go through life crying, "Please love me, please love me." The other group consists of people healthy enough to give love, not just receive it. The best cure for those who cry, "Please love me, is to help them attain a place of wholeness where they can give help and give love to others. Because in giving love to others, they will automatically fill their own deep needs for love and for attention. Love God and love your neighbor. We've heard it a million times. But so often we fail to realize that our neighbor is right in front of us, whether it be your spouse, a child, a parent, a colleague, a friend. How many spouses need a brick thrown at them to wake them up to a dying marriage? How many children need a brick thrown at them to wake them up to the needs of their elderly or sick parents? How many neighbors need a brick thrown at them to wake them up to the isolation of people living right next door? How many bosses need a brick to be thrown at them to make them realize that their employees are people who struggle with all kinds of human issues? How many bricks do all of us need to be thrown at us to awaken us to the unemployed, the uninsured, the hungry, the abandoned, the abused? So often it takes a brick to wake us up, and sometimes that doesn't even do it. Hurricane Sandy and the megastorm that it morphed into when it collided with a cold front that had rapidly moved east across the country has certainly absorbed almost every second of news coverage this past week. The presidential election has been overshadowed by Sandy's landfall. The storm surge that inundated New York and New Jersey has dominated American media channels. So much so that the conflict in Syria, the arguments about the attack in Benghazi, the government transition in China, Europe's economic woes, the rising Islamic militancy in Africa, which included last week's bombing of a Catholic church in Nigeria, they've all been pushed aside, along with the U.S. presidential campaign. It's as though these stories never existed. It will take months, if not years, to repair the damage caused by that storm. Why, it's been 11 years since the 9/11 attack, and the site of the former World Trade Center where the Freedom Tower is being built is still under construction. Even though the electricity will be restored in a few days to most people, there's so much damage that the repairs will continue for a long time. I have family members on Long Island. My brother was spared, but he said he is very grateful because so many of his colleagues at the hospital where he works have lost all their stuff, their homes, their cars, everything. He simply is out of power still. But as we reflect on this and realize that the campaign for the White House has just 2 days to go, in the aftermath of the storm, both candidates put aside campaign rhetoric and focused on those affected. President Obama met with advisors and directed federal emergency efforts, a job that won him praise from a very fierce critic, Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey. While some Republicans questioned Christie's comments, he was unfazed, saying that his job is to look after the people of New Jersey and not worry about presidential politics. A Romney for President rally in Dayton, Ohio, was transformed into an opportunity to collect relief supplies for the victims of the hurricane. Isn't it interesting that this weekend, the weekend before the election and the weekend in the midst of this most ferocious storm of our lifetime, the readings are about loving God and loving our neighbor. The Shema, the Jewish confession of faith that the Lord is our God, the Lord alone. The command in Deuteronomy, which is reiterated in Mark, is to love the Lord alone and to love our neighbor as ourselves. Sometimes it takes a brick to wake us up. Despite all of the campaign messages and all of the divisiveness of politics, we remain one nation with a duty to care for those in need. Resources began moving even before Sandy reached shore. As electric utilities shifted crews around the country, others staged supplies ready to move it once the storm had passed. And despite the millions of dollars contributed to political campaigns in the past months, we know that Americans will also contribute millions of dollars to groups like the Red Cross and Catholic Charities, to those in need, and our collection will be taken up next weekend. The Jewish word Shema means hear. It's imperative to listen to the words that follow. We will hear the cry of those in need in days to come, no matter which party we espouse in the election. It's not about crying out, please love me, but it's about loving and helping our neighbor first. It took a brick to wake up the young executive with his new Jaguar, to help him realize that people are more important than cars. Perhaps it's taking a brick called Sandy to remind us that in our best moments, we can be one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.